and hear me loud and clear as well? Perfect. Thank you so much for the confirmation, everyone. So my name is Neeraj Khedia, and I have been working in this IT industry for more than 13 years now. So before we get started, let me quickly introduce our Edureka Masterclass community with you all. So this community of masterclasses we started back in 2019, and since then we have been closing into almost 28,000 members so far. So in these masterclasses, we conduct multiple topics, multiple webinars and live events on different topics, including blockchain, IoT, artificial intelligence, machine. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, guys, based on the time zones you all are coming from. So guys, before we start with the session, can you all please give me a quick information if you all can see my screen and hear me loud and clear as well? Perfect. Thank you so much for the confirmation, everyone. So my name is Neeraj Khedia, and I have been working in this IT industry for more than 13 years now. So before we get started, let me quickly introduce our Edureka Masterclass community with you all. So this community of masterclasses we started back in 2019, and since then we have been closing into almost 28,000 members so far. So in these masterclasses, we conduct multiple topics, multiple webinars and live events on different topics, including blockchain, IoT, artificial intelligence, machine learning, big data, data science, RPA, PMB, and multiple front-end and back-end development technologies. And the best part about these webinars are they are absolutely free of cost, so there are no charges involved here. So the agenda for today's session, we are going to talk about RPA, what exactly RPA is, and then we are going to talk about the RPA tools available. We are going to talk about the introduction to UiPath Studio, how we can install it, what are the available projects in UiPath, and what are the components in UiPath Studio. And then we are going to look at how we can get started working on it as a part of the requirement. So first of all, even before UiPath, let's understand about the RPA. So consider an instance where we want to publish your articles on various social groups at a specific time every day. So would we wish to do it manually or yourself, or would we appoint an employee whose sole job would be to publish articles every day? Now, this is going to cost us a lot, and would we be tiresome for that employee, isn't right? And what we can do, instead of doing the same repetitive tasks that can be performed by a system, we can allow the system itself to perform these kind of repetitive tasks, which can be performed in a given sequence. And that exactly is what RPA is all about. So basically using the RPA, now if we talk about RPA is basically made of three different components. We have robotic, process, and automation. So robotic means those entities which mimic the human behavior, or we can say actions. These are called as robots. Because at the end, if you want something to be automated, these things are going to be automated by using the robots. Because at the end, these automated bots are the ones that are going to perform the activities, correct? And then we talk about the process. Then process is basically a sequence of steps through which a meaningful activity can be performed. For example, let's say we want to open up a browser. So obviously we know that when we are opening up the browser, we have to first, when we try to open up any domain, so trying to open up any particular domain in the browser, then first of all, we have to open the browser first. Then we can navigate to the search bar, and then we can type in our email address, correct? It has to be defined in a given sequence. And that exactly is what process is. So if we want to complete a given task in a given sequence, then we can do that easily by using process. And then we have automation. Now, when we have a given task that can be processed, that can be completed by following a given series of steps and a given sequence, and instead of doing these things manually, we can automate the entire process again by using the concepts of bots. And that exactly is what we refer as automation. So when we complete a sequence of steps by using bots, and again by using these kind of components, and we are following the strategies of RPA, as in robotic process automation. So if you combine these three, then again we can say that robotic RPA is what? Is simply mimicking the tasks which can be performed by the humans to repeat that particular process so that we can have the entire activity automated. For example, let's say we want to perform some data entry jobs, then these things can also be automated by using the RPA technologies. And we have multiple tools available out there for RPA. We have multiple tools available out there. We have UiPath, we have Blue Prism, we have Automation Anywhere, we have Fagada, we have Automation Edge, we have Crayon, we have Nice, Kofax, Another Monday, WorkFusion. So there are multiple tools available out there in the market. But the main market is captured by three main tools. That is UiPath, then followed by Automation Anywhere, and then followed by Blue Prism. So Blue Prism is mostly used by the large-scale enterprises, whereas the biggest market share is still reserved by UiPath, and the second place is held by Automation Anywhere. And then for enterprise solutions, we mostly use Blue Prism. That's how it is structured. So if we talk about UiPath first, then UiPath has been the most popular tool available, having the first position in the market. It has been named as one of the fastest growing companies since its inception. It has been ranked as #1 fastest growing company in North America on Deloitte's 2019 Technology 500 scale. And UiPath is basically used in multiple companies, including Airbus, NASA, Autodesk, DHL, HP, Fujifilm. There are multiple applications for UiPath that we have in which they are being implemented for automating a simple to even a complicated task. So first of all, to look at how we can install UiPath, we have two different editions available for UiPath that we can install. So when we are trying to install UiPath in a local system, then make sure that our laptop is connected to a power source, and you should be having at least 8 GB of RAM. We have to have Windows 7 or higher versions because UiPath doesn't work on Mac OS. And in case our system runs Windows OS in a language other than English, then we have to install the corresponding language pack for .NET Framework. And then the web browsers for browser automation, like we have supported browsers are Internet Explorers, Google Chrome, Mozilla Firefox, we have Microsoft Edge. So these all are the browsers supported by UiPath. So for example, let's say we are trying to perform some web scraping, then that can be done by using these different browsers. So we need to have a plugin installed, which is going to support these browsers, and that's how we are going to get connected. So to install UiPath, so these all are the prerequisites. So in order to install a UiPath, we have to go to the official site. We have to fill in our details. We have to open up our email, double click the download file size, and setup is going to initialize. And then we are going to enter the email address. So basically UiPath has two different platforms. If you want, we can download UiPath directly from the given link, or we can download the UiPath by using the Enterprise Edition as well. So if you are looking to start a free trial on the Enterprise Edition, then we can refer to this link here. So Community Cloud is offered for free. So there is no licensing required for Community Cloud, but the Enterprise use case ready, there is UiPath Studio. It is available for us to try out for a period of 60 days for free. So we can try out the Enterprise Edition Studio, the Enterprise Cloud, and the Enterprise Server for free for 60 days. And then later on, we have to pay accordingly. So if we are going to use it for our personal use where we don't need to have multiple automation jobs running parallelly, then we can make use of the Community Cloud. So in Community Cloud, we cannot run parallel operations. There is a limitation on the number of jobs that we can run parallelly, right? And that exactly is what is available. And we can also get the access to the community edition. So basically here we can refer to this link as well. So once we have signed up, for example, once we click on try out for free, we can also refer to this link here for cloud.uipath.com portal register. So in case we haven't registered with our email address, then we can use this platform to register. And in case we already have registered, then we will be looking at In the right sidebar, we'll be having an option called as Download Studio or Studio X. So this is basically going to download a basic UiPath Studio, which is going to work as a part of free community tool that we can use for free without any limitations. Now, we do have multiple limitations, as in we can only run 2 bots at a time, not more than that. So multiple processes, they cannot be automated in a single go. That's why we have limited, that's why we have the enterprise editions also available. So once we have downloaded, then we can open up the UiPath tool. So first of all, this is going to set up UiPath. Let's see how this is going to be configured. And once we download this, we have to simply click on sign in, and here we are going to be required to sign in into the platform. And once we successfully sign in, we would be getting the access to the UiPath platform accordingly. So even after signing in, it may take a while for this one to be configured for the first time. So we may have to wait. So in the meantime, this is being opened up. So let's understand the entire console for UiPath first. So if you talk about the entire project templates available in UiPath, then there are multiple templates available. First of all, we have process where we can start with a blank process, as in we can start with a blank project. We can start with a library as well. That means we can create some reusable components that we can include in our further projects as and when required. We can do that. Then we can also go for the orchestration process, which is basically used to implement a process through a service orchestration. And then we are going to work on the background process where we are going to use, or I can say create a process which does not require the user interaction, where the automation can happen in the background for certain activities. That is also we can combine. And then we can work with the robotic enterprise framework, which is basically used to process for large scale deployments. And then we can go for trigger based attended automation, which is basically used to trigger an automation in response to events. And then we have transactional process, which is basically used to model the automation workflow as a flowchart. So if we come back to our UiPath, we can see the UiPath has been currently structured. So now this is the entire dashboard for UiPath that we are currently looking at. Now to get started, we can simply click on open a local project, or we can start by creating a process. So we can start by creating a process here. We can give this process a name. Let's say we want to call it as a simple web scraping project. So this project is currently being created. So first of all, now this is the dashboard for UiPath that we are currently looking at. So in left sidebar, we have all the now here we have the project structure that we have currently opened up. Then we have the activities pane. So whatever we want to include as a part of automation, we can define the activities here, or we can define the snippets as in for different modules that you want to include. And then we have on top, we have the ribbon. So under this ribbon, we have multiple components. So on top, we have ribbon. On the bottom section, we do have something called as the output pane. We have something called as the output pane. So basically, whatever the output of the automation is going to be, that is going to be displayed in this output pane that we can work on. And then we have the properties tab. So whatever activity we are going to select, whatever element is going to be selected, the properties for that particular element is going to be visible in the right sidebar. All right. So now if we talk about the top ribbon sections, then first of all, the ribbon section includes multiple components. First of all, we have the options to create, save, and execute the project. As we can see here from the left sidebar, here we can create a new project. Here we can save it as a template, or to run the automation. Once we are done with defining all the processes, then we can run it, or we can simply debug the file. And then we have the options to manage all the dependencies as a part of the packages, where we can use it to install multiple dependencies for the automation workflows. In case you want to install certain plugins to work on specific platforms, then we can do that. Then we have the option of record. So we can use recording to record actions on desktop and virtual environments. Then we have the options available for scrapping. So basically, in terms of scrapping, we have two components available. We have screen scrap and then we have data scrap. So basically, screen scrap is if we have any image or any software open up or anything that is over visible on the image on the window. For example, even though suppose some kind of video is still running on. So we can scrap the data available from any of the elements that is currently being displayed on the screen. And then we have data scrapping. So data scrapping involves scrapping data from multiple websites or any particular file that we have opened up. We can define some kind of automation for fetching data from those selective sources. That is what we can define here. And then we have the entire activity pane. So for example, let's say we want to start by defining a sequence. Then we can simply assign a sequence here. So let's say here we want to create a new sequence. Then first of all, here we can click on create new sequence. Let's say we want to start with our web scraping sequence. So here we can define web scraping. Click on create. So when we say web scraping sequence, that means again, as a part of a hands-on, we are going to look at how we can scrap data available on the websites to work on them. So here we are going to look at how exactly we can work on those different data sets as a part of our a small hands-on. So here we are going to refer to certain projects. So let's find some website link from where we can scrap some data, and then we are going to create a sequence so that we can run the sequence as a part of our automation. So let's say as a part of our hands-on, we are going to scrap data from a website. Let's say the website address is, let's say this one, Mufubu. We have this kind of website, like we have Mufubu, or we can use any other domain that we want. All right. So as a part of a hands-on, we do have a domain by the name of Mufubu. So basically from this website, we want to scrap data sets. That means again, let's say if you open this website in the browser, we would be looking at some data sets. So we can use any e-commerce stores. For example, suppose we have selected one category for Mufubu. Let's suppose here we have a backpacks, right? We can use any other domain. For example, let's suppose here we have domains for, or it can be any e-commerce store where we have or from where we want to scrap data. It can be any e-commerce store as part of the requirement. For example, we have another e-commerce store. Let's suppose here we have this one. Again, we can scrap data from this one as well. For example, suppose we have multiple data sets or multiple data sets being scrapped and being available on different pointers here. And now we want to scrap data available on this website, and we want to store it, and we want to store all the informations present on these e-commerce website in a separate CSV file. So we can do that easily by using the automation that we can go for as a part of automation. So let's say here we want to scrap this website. So what we can do here, we can go back to our UiPath. So to automate the process of web scrapping, so first of all, what we are going to do here, our goal is to make sure that we are scrapping data from all the from this website where we are going to scrap data, such as we want to scrap the data available in these different for these different products, along with the product name, the old price, and the new price, and we want this data to be stored in a separate CSV file. We want that. So first of all, we do have to make sure that we do have a blank CSV file in which the details have to be recorded. So what we can do, we can create a blank CSV file. Let's say we save the CSV file on desktop itself. And on desktop, let's say we name it as details.csv. Let's save it in the format of CSV. We can save it. So once we have the CSV file saved with us, then we can come back to our UiPath. And here we can start creating and here we have to scrap data from the available domain, correct? So here what we can do, here we can simply use this option which says data scrapping. So here we can choose data scrapping, and then we can start selecting the element first. So here we want to scrap data from this different website, right? So here we can click on next. Now from the given domain, we have to choose which particular component we want to go for. We have to choose the domain first. Okay, we have an overlay for the GoToWebinar that we have. And before we can work on the automation part, we have to make sure that we do have the UiPath web automation plugin also configured. because without this plugin, we won't be able to work on the browser. So in case we don't have this kind of plugin already installed and configured, we have to make sure that we are installing this particular plugin by going through the UiPath section. So let's say here we can come back to UiPath. Under Home, we can go to Settings, and under Settings, we can find the on the tools, sorry, not in settings here, on the tools, we can find the entire extensions available for Edge, for Chrome, for Firefox, on whichever browser we want to work on the automation components. And then once we have the plugin installed, so now we can come back to UiPath, and here we can go to data scrapping. So under data scrapping, we have to first of all open the domain, and here we can click on next. Okay, so since we have enabled the extension after loading the website, so we may have to refresh the browser so that the plugin can be available. Let's close the browsers. Let's open up a new window. In this window, let's type in the domain name. Let's check if the extension is enabled or not. So we have UiPath. Okay, this is enabled. So now we can come back to UiPath, and here we can go click on data scrapping. Click on next. Now we can see here, now we are able to select all the elements one by one. So first of all, we want to scrap and store this heading here, this word heading. So here we can click on this heading here. And now we have to set patterns. That means how is that? That means, first of all, we have chosen this particular heading here, right? So we have to establish a pattern. That means how exactly, if we set a pattern, that means based on whatever is common in these two different headings. Basically, they are going to be a common div class. There's going to be common styling components, right? A styling class itself. So if these classes are found, so if anything is found common in these two different components, in these two different elements on this page, then same thing is going to be found on the entire page. And then all the similar elements are going to be selected. So for example, the next one we have selected this element. Now, UiPath is automatically going to compare these two different values. That means it is going to compare, okay, what is common between these two, and then it is going to replicate things automatically on all the different components. So now here we can define, we want to save this detail under the name of product name. And now we want to extract the URL. That means the link which has been associated with each and every URL here. So we can save the URL as suppose by the name of URL. And now we can click on next. And now we can see here we have the product name and the URL associated with that particular, we can say, listing here has been currently automatically being fetched for all the entries made in the given web page. And once we have scrapped it, again, we also want to scrap adjacent data as well, right? So here we can click on extract core related data set. And let's say here we want to scrap this old price. So here we can first of all choose old price. And then we can again set the pattern. That means here we can find we can help UiPath to find the common elements. So here we can also choose the same element, and now we can see all the previous pricing has automatically been selected by UiPath. And now we can give this a name. Let's say here we want to call it as old price, and we don't want to extract the URL for it. And here we can click on next. Now we can see old price has also been extracted with the same piece of information. They all are related to each other. Again, we want to extract the newer price, right? So here we can define new price. Again, we can extract the relation here by defining again new price. I can see all the new price have been automatically selected. Now we can save it by the name of new price. And we don't want to extract the URL for it. And here we can click on next. So now we have the product name, we have the URL, we have the old price, and then we have new price. And now once we are done, we can click on finish. And if we have data which is expanding on multiple pages, then we can simply use the spanning option automatically available under UiPath. So if we set this option as yes, then we can choose how the system should be navigating to the next page, and we can define this particular icon here. So using this icon, the system is going to navigate to the next section. And as you can see here, now the entire scrapping has automatically been recorded that we are going to use for storing data and writing it to a CSV file format. Now, once we are done scrapping the entire component here, now we have to make sure that whatever data is going to be extracted here, that should be written in a CSV file, in the same CSV file that we have currently opened up, that we have created, right, under the name of details of CSV. So what we can do here, we can create, here we can look for another activity. So let's say here we are looking to write the files to CSV. So here we can simply search for write, and then we have the different activities available for writing CSV, for writing the cell, for writing the range, for different write activities that we have the access to. So now we are going to simply import write CSV, and then here we are going to simply include this as a part of write CSV model. Now, basically here we are going to first of all define what file to write. So here that means we should be having the file already created. So on desktop, we have save the file. So we have details of CSV. So we can save it up. And here we have defined from where the file should be written. So basically when we are using data scrapping, so if we go to the section here for the extract data source here, right? Now, when we are choosing the entire data sources here, then we can see we have the properties available. So for example, if we choose extract data sources, we can go to properties, and then we would be looking at properties here. Now that means in here we can see we have something called as output. That means data which is going to be scrapped from the data scrapping module. That data is currently being stored in a temporary data table which has been given the name as extract data table in the left properties tab. When we move on to extract structured data into div components. So here we have to copy this name, and then under write from, in the write CSV activity, here we have to define extract data table. So basically this is going to fetch the data which is going to be saved under this table name by this data scrapping activity, right? And once we are done, we can now to run this automation, we can click on this option which says debug file. So if you click on debug file, so this is going to simply run the entire process. In case there are some errors or there is something wrong, then we will be able to see what is wrong in the output part. Or else if it is working fine, then we should be seeing the output as completed successfully. So let's wait for this scrapping to be done. Now, as you can see, if there's an error, so what that is, so the process cannot access the file. Why? Because it is being used by another process, right? Now, when we say it is being used by another process, that means now this CSV file has already been opened up in this Excel sheet, correct? So in order for UiPath to write something in the CSV file, this file needs to be closed. That means this file should not be in use. So here we can close the file, and now again we can stop the entire automation, and now we can rerun it. So once the file has been stopped here, again we can rerun the same process. So now the file is no longer in use, so the automation is going to work, is going to get completed perfectly without any errors. So as you can see here, this had been completed without any issues. And if you want to see the output, so here we can go to the output tab, and we can see the debug started, the web scraping execution started, and web scraping execution ended in almost 19 seconds. That means now if we go to our desktop, if we open up this particular details of CSV file, let's open this up. Can we all see this? Now we have the same data being extracted, right? We have product name, we have URL, we have the old price, the new price, extracted automatically for almost 101 products by UiPath as a simple automation that we can go for. So that's how we can work with a simple basic automation that we have available under UiPath. And there are multiple other automations that we can go for. For example, let's say we are going to do multiple activities here. Let's say here we want to offer we want to read a CSV file here. Again, we have activities available for reading the CSV file based on logic that we are going to define. For example, suppose we are going to work on the PDF components, and we do have activities available for converting a file, or we can say we are going to for a simple OCR. So if basically using the OCR, we are going to simply scrap the content available from any scan images. For example, suppose here we are going to scan or run an automation job for going through all the available scan PDFs. And now we want to store that data in a CSV file, in a simple Excel sheet. So we can go ahead and perform that kind of screen scrapping, and then we can save the output as a part of Excel or CSV file. So there are endless number of automations that we can apply, that we can go for by using UiPath. And as we can see here, there is no hardcore coding skills are required here. We only need to be aware, okay, how exactly we have to work with the logic, and we need to be aware, okay, how exactly we have to combine different activities, and that too with what given sequence, with what different variables as a part of automating these solutions here. Thank you so much for joining and have a great day ahead. Take care. Bye-bye.